Eric here from 7th Circle Hobbies, and in this video I will show you how to paint Wizkids Deep Cuts Executioner Mini. After I filed off the mold lines and gave the Mini a zenithal prime, the first step was to begin with flesh tones. I began with a thinned down Cadian flesh tone and painted 2 thin layers and allowed it to dry. While painting, do your best to avoid getting paints in the shaded areas. After 2 thin coats, we'll have something that might look like this. I then painted Army Painter gunmetal on the X-blade, although any gunmetal color you have will do the trick. I then painted Reaper Pure Black thinned down with a few drops of water to the pants and boots. Any pure black color you have will do for this stage. I also painted the strap and eventually the Executioner cowl with this color as well. Sometimes you just need to pause in the middle of painting the figure. This allows you to figure out how much you've done and where you need to go and the best steps moving forward. I went back to my base flesh tone and gave it a heavy wash with Army Painter Strong Tone. Once that dried, I reapplied the Cadian flesh tone, careful not to cover the shading that the Strong Tone provided. Here you can see that I'm careful not to undo the work that all the shading provided, only hitting the very highlighted raised edges of the flesh. Take your time with this step. The dividends will pay off soon. I then moved up to Kislev Flesh, layering the flesh to brighter and brighter tones, and eventually finished with Elf Flesh, which received a very thin wash of Army Painter soft tone. For some reason, this video cut out that step, and I can't find the footage. But just want to go slow, and you want to make sure your paint is very thin so that you're gradually building up those layers of flesh to give it a very realistic look. Here I've brought out the box. I want to try and make it as close to the artwork as original. Although that painter is really excellent, I'm just doing my best to imitate their style here. Here you can begin seeing the very last layer of flesh, which is the elf flesh, and again it's very thin down, just sort of like a glaze going over the tones that we've established with the second layer of flesh. And here's an important lesson about planning out a miniature. I was all over with this figure. I really should have just done all the flesh, then did all the cloth, and I would have been done. But I jumped all around and did different things at different times. I picked out the axe handle with the brown I had left over from painting the gallows. See the description in the card if you're interested in the terrain. And here I applied Vallejo model color black-gray just to give the cloth some depth and richness. Although really on a model of this scale, It's probably not really needed, might be a bit overlined, but I thought it'd be interesting just to kind of give it some extra shade so that when I got to the final highlight stage, it wasn't just pure black on a very sky gray highlight. Finally, I picked out the very highest edges of the cloth and gave it a very thin edge highlight of Vallejo Sky Gray. I then picked out the studs on the strap across the chest with the Army Painter gunmetal.